PGA Nation, we are back, and we are back with a fun week in golf. We'll be drafting three-way tonight. The audience, David and myself, Spence can't make it tonight. We'll catch up with him next week, but for that, we got a three-man draft in what is one of the most rowdy and exciting tournaments you get in golf. This happens to finish on the same day as the Super Bowl. So there's kind of like a little cross-reference of the Super Bowl of golf, one of the bigger events. It's obviously not a major, but it's like close to a major. So super exciting week. A pretty loaded field for considering what we've been getting in the most of the tournaments we've had this year. So it's also, David, I'd love to get your opinion. It's probably one of the most fun tournaments to bet on, just from an excitement level. The crowd, when you watch it on TV, you can feel the energy in these tournaments. Super exciting. And David, you won last week. So you're coming off a win, another big draft for you tonight. David, how you doing and how excited are you for the Waste Management?
I'm good, mate. And yeah, look, absolutely super exciting tournament. I was preparing for a radio interviewing last night and went back and watched that iconic hole-in-one from Tiger Woods in 1997 on the 16th hole at this golf course, and the crowd just going absolutely nuts because not only was it a hole-in-one getting made, but it was Tiger Woods making a hole-in-one. And you look at the infrastructure now that's been built up around this golf course, the stadium-like atmosphere, the huge structures around the 16th start getting built in September in order to get ready for this tournament. So it is a lot of fun. It's a great venue. It's a great audience atmosphere as well, and be interesting to see who's up there on the 16th pumping up the crowd. I'm no doubt Tom Kim will be fist pumping and getting everybody amped up for it, and then others trying to keep as quiet as possible and avoiding the heckles.
And what I'll add to that is what makes this, I think, extra exciting for me and for the folks watching this show, people who are betting on golf and handicapping the tournament is, in my opinion, it's pretty straightforward in terms of the profile of golfer you want to target at this week at this golf course, right? And so, a lot of the tournaments we've been playing, it's been a little trickier, right? Playing in wind, playing in conditions, different types of courses. I feel like this one's more straightforward, should help with handicapping. It's one of the courses where course history matters. So that's another factor where you can look into guys who have done well here before. Without Spence, though, David has done an excellent job breaking down these courses and the different factors to look for when you're profiling a golfer that should be a good course fit. So, David, I'm going to pass the reins over to you tonight to break down what you're looking for this week in Phoenix.
Yeah, look, it's a really interesting golf course. We've seen it perhaps change how it plays a little bit across the years. And I think part of that has come down to the firmness of conditions. We've especially seen that in the greenkeepers notes this year. They've said they've only basically had one significant rainfall since May. The whole region has been essentially in an extended period of drought. And these greens can get incredibly fast at the best of times. Huge green complexes, 7,000, 6,000 square foot kind of size greens with multiple tiers. So in terms of the recipe of what that has meant for players when approaching this course, you've got off the tee quite a lot of space. However, if you get way too wayward, you're going to end up in these desert waste areas. You can end up in cactuses. We saw a bunch of people, going back to Tiger Woods, moving a huge boulder at one point in order to allow him to play a shot. So you can get into trouble if you get far too wayward off the tee. But for the most part, you can rip driver here pretty readily. And given the firm conditions, I expect you're going to get a lot of run out as well. I don't actually think driving distance is all that important a factor this week. I think that's also enhanced even further from the fact that firm conditions, you are going to get further run out. The real key for me is that you look through the list of winners here, and there's a few things that are notable. One is you've had multiple winners win multiple times. So Hideki Matsuyama, Mark Kaukavecchia, Scottie Scheffler, obviously. So multiple players who have come here and then not only won, but then come back and won again, or even 3 times on occasion as well. So as you see, course history is really strong, but like a history of multiple winners is pretty notable at this event in particular. And the other is you look through those names and they're all really, really prolific ball strikers. Approach play seems to be really essential here. It really draws out those players, and I think that moves through to the green complexes, the size of those greens. That it's kind of similar to like the Valero Texas Open and Colonial, some of those Texas courses where you've got these multi-tiered greens, and even though the green is 7,000 square feet, your actual target area can be a lot smaller than that, just because you have to try and get onto the correct level to give yourself the best putt, rather than a multi-breaker or something going up multiple levels as well. So one real key that I'm looking at this week is the approach range from 150 to 200 yards. And you're going to see 9 approach shots on average from each player within that range. So 50% of all of their approach shots are going to come from 150 to 200 yards. So that is a really heavy concentration of approach shots within one single bucket. And so if you can find those really good ball strikers who can hit within those ranges, find those targets. And typically bad putters have done well here as well. We're seeing real team no putt find success at TPC Scottsdale as well. So despite the fact that having a good putting rig is obviously essential for winning here, it hasn't necessarily been the profile that you've needed in the players you've been identifying.
There you have it. Important to understand the golfer profile that you want to target that seems like a good fit for this type of tournament, especially because it's a cut event. So you got to get guys that make the cut. You want to have a core of golfers that you feel good about, that you'll make it into the weekend, because it's really hard to make money in DFS if you don't get at least 5, but more than likely 6 out of 6 through the cut. If anyone's new to the show tonight, we will be drafting. Now, tonight, it's only going to be a 3-man draft. Most nights we do a 4-man, but it works the same. It's a snake-style draft because David won last week. The order tonight, as we bring up the draft board, is going to go David, myself, and then audience third. Audience, you'll get 2 in a row. So then at the third pick, you'll get the first pick in the second round, and then we will go back. The caveat to our draft is you do need to stay within a DraftKings salary. So that means you cannot just draft every good golfer. You have to make sure you can afford each golfer that you are drafting. And if you're new to the show, be sure to log in on YouTube. So if you're in on YouTube, you can get in the chat. You can draft along with the audience. The way it works is once it's the audience picks, don't jump the gun and go too soon, because anything you write in the chat, we can see and we can steal your picks. Wait till it's your pick. And then when it is your pick, put your nominations in. Everybody who's in the chat can put in a nomination to who they want to pick. As soon as that golfer is seconded, meaning a second person mentions that person's name, that is the audience pick. So you guys draft your own team using that system. Without further ado, David, you gave yourself the first pick, and you are on the clock.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, this picks itself. Like, do we need to have a conversation about this, or can we just move straight to the second pick here and just immediately just carry on? I mean, Scotty Scheffler returned last week from a hand injury. I cracked up at his press conference, by the way. So did you see the story of how he actually injured his hand? So it was preparing Christmas dinner, but he was at like a holiday home that you book. And as you sometimes find at those holiday homes, they don't have everything in the kitchen that you need to prepare a meal. So he was rolling out pasta to make some fresh raviolis, and they didn't have a rolling pin. So he decided to use a wine glass, and then the wine glass broke and embedded in his hand. That's how he got his injury. Well, last week was Scotty Scheffler returning from injury, and he finished 9th in obviously some rust from having not playing for a while, finished 9th. Believe it or not, 9th place is the 3rd worst finish that Scotty Scheffler has had in the last 12 months. So if that's Scotty Scheffler at his low, I'm very happy taking him with the first selection here, especially given his record on this particular golf course.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on this course. Scotty's a no-brainer for me. He's a great fit. He is head and shoulders above the field. The 12K, you know, they had the price in there. It could be underpriced because you got to just jam him in and play him. The only hesitation I would have with Scotty has zero to do with golf and is 100% to do with ownership. And golf's, you know, can be a fickle sport, even though, as you just said, what was it? 9th place is the 3rd worst finish he's had. So that's just insane. Like, that's crazy how good he's been. And especially at a course that's a good course fit in a field where he's way better than everyone else. There's just so much to like about him that fitting him in just makes sense. At a 3-man draft, he's a no-brainer. You plug and play. If you're playing a big tournament because he's going to be so highly owned, I can see you trying to pivot to get different. But, yeah, I mean, Scotty Scheffler is going to be a staple in everybody's lineups this week because it's a no-brainer. So me, now I have to think here. There's a few ways I can go with this pick. You know, there's some guys at the top that I'm considering that I like a lot. Obviously, it's pretty obvious who. They're some of the best golfers in the world. There's definitely some value plays I really want. My concern is I'm trying to be a little strategic with this draft in that I think there's some value plays that I can wait on. I don't think we'll go in the first round. So I want to take now who I think might not be available to me coming back. And I'm going to start with one that you might look at me funny about. But listen, Nick Taylor is playing great. I mean, Nick Taylor's in really great form. We know if you're looking at course history, we know he likes this course. I mean, heck, he won it last year. He got second the year before. So course history, you definitely got to check the box. But you want to marry course history with the fact that since the turn of the calendar year in January, he's playing fantastic. He's won the Sony Open just a couple weeks ago. He got you a 12th at the American Express. He was 33rd at Pebble Beach, but if you look closer, he gained almost 5 strokes on approach. So his irons are just absolutely dialed in. He might want to refine, off the tee and around the green a little bit. But as we mentioned, as David mentioned, around the green game at this course is probably not going to be overly prioritized. So the way he's striking the ball right now with his course history, I really like the way this is shaping up for Nick Taylor. So, any other time, $8,400 Nick Taylor would be like, yikes, that's overpriced. But for this tournament, the way he's playing right now at $8,400, I'm going to go ahead and start this draft for me with Nick Taylor, a value pick off the board for, considering. But I think he has top 10, top 5 upside this week and can really do some damage. So same kind of concern with Nick Taylor here. He's for Nick Taylor, an $8,400 price tag. He's going to come at probably close to 15% ownership, which for him is a bit high. But I'm okay with stomaching that ownership here, and I'll get different elsewhere as my team progresses. So, audience, you're on the clock here. We need 2 from you. So it looks like some nominations already coming in. We'll wait for the seconds to finalize that pick. And in the meantime, I'll ask you, David, is Nick Taylor on your radar this week?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, this is a course, as you mentioned, which has some of the stickiest course history on the PGA Tour. It does tend to translate very, very well from year to year. And the guy's finished second and won the event in the last couple of years. And then obviously he's in great form. I mean, he's just won recently. As you mentioned last week at Pebble Beach, he struggled a little bit on the greens, but the approach play was excellent, which is the main thing that you want to see. It is different green type here. So is Poano in Pebble Beach, but here it's a mix of like bent grass with the rye overseed and Poano overseed. It's kind of like a real like mongrel of mixed up different grass types here, but it does play quite differently. So no qualms whatsoever. He's striking the ball beautifully at the moment, and you could even argue, given his course history here, that 8,400 is a little low. And in regards to the ownership, I've got 14%, so same sort of figure that you're looking at with 15. I don't think that's overly high, because I probably would have expected him to be sort of high 8 or like flat 9K or something like that in terms of pricing him.
Boom, there you have it. We are aligned on Nick Taylor. Audience, it looks like you're in. I'm going back up just to confirm. We don't have anyone confirming the picks. Is it, David, keep me honest, is it Hideki and Mav? Is that locked in, or is it Tom Kim?
Tom Kim was Albert. Had Tom Kim and Mav. And then Mav got a second from Prasant, so definitely Mav McNeely. And then it looks like Tom Kim with the other one, from what I can see.
Tom Kim and Mav McNeely. I think considering Scheffler's off the board, I think that's a pretty good start for the audience draft here. You got 2 solid guys, 2 guys with plenty of upside in this tournament to make room. Tom Kim looked really strong last week. I think he can carry that momentum over. David, would love to get your take. Are you interested in Tom Kim and Mav McNeely?
Yeah, we were talking about Tom Kim a little bit earlier in the Win Daily Premium Discord and offering a bit of advice on him. I do think that he doesn't necessarily profile naturally for this fit, but I think he has got a few factors going with him. Like, we just think of his performances in the President's Cup, right, where he really is pumping up the audience and getting into that whole atmosphere. Like, he seems to thrive in that environment. Like, he kind of likes to be the center of attention and to be the star, which at TPC Scottsdale, with the way that the People's Open runs, isn't necessarily well, it's not foreign there, is it? It's a pretty raucous atmosphere. The other concern is he is going to be very highly owned. I've got around 19% ownership at the moment. It is pretty high, but in saying that, ownership and especially chalky players, it's not necessarily a bad thing. And we talk about this on the show all the time in terms of your tactics and how you approach building these lineups. Chalk isn't in itself a bad thing. It's just when you get 5 guys who are all like 15 to 20% owned or higher, you're going to really struggle to take out tournaments because every other guy is going to have those exact same players within their lineup, and you end up with double ups and you end up with duplicated lineups, and suddenly you're relying on like one player to be the difference maker for you. And if that one player stumbles, well, you've got no leverage. So that's why you've just got to be careful how you deploy chalk. It's not necessarily a bad thing in of itself. So yeah, Tom Kim, totally playable. Just depends how you deploy him.
All right, there you have it. All right, I'm back up here, and I'm going to take a guy who no one's going to be surprised by, who I probably take every single week. Definitely is my guy. He's playing great. I don't understand why his pricing keeps getting disrespected, and the ownership isn't following. Yes, David, did you? Yes, that is correct. You already knew who it was. That is accurate. It's Andrew Novak. I mean, I don't understand. It's like a name thing where I think DraftKings like just doesn't respect him. But if you look at the results, he certainly warrants a price upgrade here. Again, another guy I'm seeing at 14.5%. So I think ownership for him here, it's a little high, but I'm totally fine with 14.5% the way he's playing. He got a top 10 here in his only attempt playing the course before, so course fit is there. He's gotten you a top 10 once already. But more recently, he got T13 at Pebble Beach. He got you third at the Farmers. He has 2 missed cuts at the American Express at the Sony. But even if you look at last year, the amount of top 30s and 20s he was been getting on a consistent basis, I don't know why Andrew Novak's not getting up to the 8K range. I think he deserves to be there. I think he's week in, week out getting underpriced, and I'm going to keep playing him until they adjust his price accordingly. So I think there's plenty of upside here with Andrew Novak. I think he gets you another top 10, and I will be betting that in the betting markets as well. David, you got 2 here, but we'd love your take on Novak.
Yeah, the reason why I was already there with the ready to put Andrew Novak's name is because that's a steal. I would have taken Andrew Novak on the wraparound here if you had let him fall to me. I kind of figured if I took Scheffler and you were in the second spot, like with 2 selections, there's no way that Andrew Novak was going to get to me. Look, I mean, we on the show, and particularly you, Joel, credit to you here, have been talking about Andrew Novak's performance, and some of his metrics have been coming out for quite some time now. And the fact that he's come back with a 13th, and he arrives at a golf course he's played once, and he finished 8th in a signature event. And as you said, Andrew Novak is not a household name. So he's coming into a very strong field, finishing 8th, and then and he's coming off 2 finishes of 13th and 3rd, and he's still 7,500. Like, it's a clear underprice. The ownership for me is like still extremely playable. I'm only getting him at currently 11%. Which I would have thought would be miles higher, given the fact he's got generally what people do is they look at recent form, they look at course history, they put those 2 together, and they're like, these are the players who are going to win me golf tournaments, which isn't necessarily always the best way to go about it, but that tends to result in high ownership. Like, that's the reality of it. So just still get him at 11% despite the course profile and his performance here, I think is an absolute steal. So well done to you, Joel. Obviously the fact you've stolen him now means he's cursed. He's going to miss the cut or withdraw. So I'm sorry about that, but I do really, really like Andrew Novak this week.
Boom. I love it. All right, David. You got Scheffler in the 12K. How are you going to balance out your draft from here?
Yeah, I mean, look, that's a very good question because I did think Andrew Novak was possibly going to fall back to me, and that would have been the way that I would have liked to have gone. I'll take one first, and then maybe you can pedal for a little bit while I look for my alternative. Is again another player that I think is kind of consistently undervalued at the moment is Tom Hoge. Tom Hoge is 7,400, so even cheaper than Novak, and has been compiling some great results lately. There was another one last week, 17th at Pebble Beach in a signature event, but on a run and made cuts. He started the year as finishing 8th of the century, and he arrives at a really good course for him. I mean, he's played very well. He's had a couple of top 20s, and at comp courses, he's played very well as well. If we're looking at other sort of desert courses with similar kind of metrics and profiles, I think TPC Summerlin's a really good correlation. He's finished 4th there previously. TPC Craig Ranch, TPC San Antonio. Some of those other desert courses tend to correlate pretty well. to what TPC Scottsdale was going to provide. So Tom Hoge particularly, we know what Tom Hoge's recipe is, and that is just like striping the ball like nothing else with his irons. And this tournament rewards elite ball strikers. That's a marriage that I want to continue working on. And at 7,400, I think he's great value. So I'll let you talk about Tom Hoge for a little bit, and then I'll scramble and find another selection.
All right. Well, while David's searching for his next pick, one thing I want to highlight as I'm looking at Tom Hoge and the selection you just made, and I do this with all the guys I'm looking at, especially these early year tournaments, there was a pretty big gap. There wasn't a lot of action in December. So what happens is people run these models, and it's aggregating data that goes back to October, November, and mixing it with the same tournaments that just happened 3 weeks ago. And I put a little more weight on how you're performing in January, because that's what you're playing recently versus what you did in November, 3 months ago. And so if you look at Hoge from just January on, for the last 4 tournaments he's played in, he's gained over 2.5 strokes on approach on each tournament. He's gained strokes on each time he's seated up around the green. And early in the month, he had 2 really bad tournaments driving the ball, but he's corrected that. And he has since been pretty neutral with his driver. So if you're telling me we're getting a guy who's going to be an elite ball striker, who is positive around the green, not hurting himself with the driver, actually gaining a little bit with the driver, the only thing left for me with Hoge is he going to make some putts? And if he gets hot with that putter, I think you're looking at a Tom Hoge who's significantly underpriced and underowned for a tournament like this. So solid pick there. He'll be in my player pool as well.
Yeah, great. Thank you for your resounding endorsement of Tom Hoge. And look, as I mentioned at the top of the show, right, like we've seen bad putters do really well here. For some reason, these greens tend to either be a little bit easier, or like they're so fast that even bad putters, like they end up like equalizing, if that makes sense. And the focus really is on approach play, and kind of similar to that narrative, I'm going to go and take my second selection with that in mind. And this guy can be really boom or bust with his putter. That's Siwoo Kim. He can absolutely spike with it. He could be absolutely dreadful. He's gained strokes putting a number of times recently, especially since the start of the new year. Gained strokes putting in 3 out of 5, and only one in the Farmers. He was only a minor loser with the putter. So he has gained quite often with putter recently. But the main thing with Siwoo is his ball striking is excellent. Last week he gained with on both distance and accuracy. Tends to be really strong off the tee. Tends to be a really good approach player as well. And he's a player who's got good history here. He's had 3 consecutive finishes of 26 or better. Great correlation at TPC Craig Ranch. He's finished second there and 13th in the most recent editions at that event. So, and some great performances at TPC Someone as well. So I think this is a great fit for Siwoo. I love his ball striking. I think that's really going to be key this week. So happy to take him here at 8,000 and hopefully snag him before you do.
All right, there you go. Siwoo Kim off the board. I got some more funds to spend here, and I'm going to use them. I'm going to go up, and I'm going to take another one of my guys, a guy I'm taking often. That's Hideki Matsuyama. And one thing we say often on this show is, if your guy was hot and you're on him and he has one bad week, don't let that one bad week be the thing that turns you off to him. He's still the same golfer, right? He's likely to turn around, especially at Pebble, which Pebble can be unique and weird because it's windy. They got the cliffs. Things can happen there. I think you get a bounce back, and I think you get a little bit of suppressed ownership. I think if Hideki didn't have not such a great result last week at Pebble, I think the ownership is up closer to 20% this week. Right now, I'm only seeing 15, and at 10-2, I think Hideki has a ton of upside. They can go out and win this tournament. If you look at the recent statistics and drill in a little bit, his ball striking has been spectacular since the turn of the year. He gained 9 strokes at the Century and won it at the beginning of January. He gained 6.5 strokes on approach at the Farmers. Wasn't great off the tee, which was the issue. I think at this course, it's pretty forgiving off the tee. I don't think he'll have too many issues there. I think that will be forgiving. I think if those ball striking is like what we saw earlier in January, I think Hideki can go out there and compete to win this tournament. So I'm excited that obviously Scheffler is the preferred target, but losing out on Scheffler, I'm excited to get Hideki, who'd be my number 2 target in this draft. Audience, you got 2 here. So it looks like a few nominations are already coming in. We'll wait for some additional nominations and seconds to finalize those picks. And while we wait, David, are you interested in Hideki Matsuyama this week?
Yeah, I think one really interesting thing with Hideki is, as you mentioned, if you are taking Scotty Scheffler, it then becomes really difficult, obviously, to be able to afford Hideki Matsuyama. So as a result of that, you've got, 39% of lineups, 40% of lineups starting with Scotty Scheffler. Those lineups are going to really struggle to go and be built with Hideki Matsuyama. Be kind of interested to see how that build works, like in terms of having a Scheffler Matsuyama at the top and then really diving down and trying to find some value, even just some cut makers further down, and hoping that Hideki and Scheffler, I mean, one of them wins it and the other one finishes sort of like top three, and you get some, top 20s out of some lower value guys. I think that'd be a really interesting way to look at the construction, because not many people are going to be able to afford to do that and won't do it with many lineups as a result, because of the difficulty with salary caps that comes into play if you do take both of those players. So, look, I think he's a really natural fit. As I said, tons of history at this golf course, and the fact that these repeat winners keep winning when it comes to TPC Scottsdale. So I think he's a fine selection, and really like your build so far.
All right, there you have it, audience. Let's see. Are we locked in? It looks like Perez is one lock, which is an interesting one. And I don't think the second one is locked yet. I'm seeing a few names here, but I don't see an official. Did we see a second Gim yet? No. Perez. So, audience, we'll need one more for you. You got one pick in Victor Perez. Audience, finalize that second pick on this turn. While we wait, we'll go to you, David, here. Is Victor Perez on your radar?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, one of the benefits of being in the Win Daily Discord, by the way, jump into the description and grab 50% off your membership today, is you get the front forward email of all the notice of who we're going with and where our betting's going. And we'll say that Victor Perez made my card this week, which is probably part of what's driven the team audience selection there, hoping to snag him off me before he comes back around. I think that Victor Perez could potentially be really sneaky this week. Part of that is he's played really well in the desert over on the DP World Tour. So he won at Yas Links. That's a desert golf course in Abu Dhabi in the Middle East, and a Rolex Series event as well. So it's a really, obviously kind of their strongest field being a Rolex Series event. It's comparable probably to some of the regular season events on the PGA Tour in terms of their strength. And the other thing I'd really point to with him is he's played very well at the DP World Tour Championship. Again, that's their season-ending event. So the best players are all playing. Rory's playing, Hovland's playing, John Rahm has been playing until recently in that as well. You often see Joaquin Niemann play. So the top guys. And he has finished in the last 5 years no worse than 46, and 4 of those finishes were 20th or better, and then he's including a 7th and 8th and a 12th in the best fields on the DP World Tour. So he's got all of that going for him. He's coming off a week at the Farmers where he missed the cut, but that was all to do with short game, it was all to do with putter. But in those 2 rounds, he gained over 5 strokes on approach. So his approach was absolutely popping. We know that he's someone who can absolutely get lit up with the putter when he gets hot. We saw that on the DP World Tour time and time again, and when he gets to the contention, he can really find a way to the top of the leaderboard and win.
Boom. All right. Victor Perez endorsed. Second pick is locked in. Sungjae Im. I'll go ahead and endorse that. I think Sungjae gives me a similar kind of response that I gave to Hideki. Sungjae is just a talent in this player pool. He's someone who's had some top 10 results here before. T33 at Pebble Beach, not a great result for him. Probably a little bit disappointing, but not terrible. That might kind of lean some people off of him. But he's an elite talent in this field who certainly has a ton of upside. Sungjae is definitely someone I'd be interested in, will be in my player pool as well. All right, with my 4th pick, I'm going to be a little defensive. I'm going to do some strategic drafting. I'm seeing how much budget David has. I see where the audience is at. I have a little bit more money. There's someone else I want to spend up on that I'm going to save. I'm going to go for my value pick first, and that's going to be Charlie Hoffman. Now, I always typically have a little lean towards Charlie Hoffman at this tournament because he's sponsored by the Waste Management. And I don't know, that doesn't mean anything, but it just kind of makes you feel like he should want to do a little better, a little extra motivation because of the sponsor in this tournament. But the reality is, when he's playing not great, like last year or 2 years ago, and you kind of want to take a shot on a really cheap guy because of a sponsor motivation or something like that to come through. But this year, he's in form. he's playing great golf. So we're not just taking a guy who's, not playing well and hoping he does well. Now I'm drafting a guy who, we might have the edge because, he's sponsored. But if you look at his ball striking metrics in January, so the turn of the calendar year, he gained 4 strokes on approach at the Sony Open. He gained 1 at the American Express, 1 at the Farmers. He's been absolutely excellent off the tee, gaining more than 2 strokes at each tournament he's teed it off this year. To David's point, your biggest concern with Charlie Hoffman is he is one of the captains of Team Nobody. He's really poor with that putter. But, you've seen guys who are Team Nobody have some success here at this tournament. You've also seen Charlie Hoffman in particular have some success at this particular putting. So if he can find a way to have a neutral putter, if not slightly positive here, with the way he's hitting the ball and ball striking, I think you get a really good result for a 7,200 priced Charlie Hoffman. David, you got 2 more here, but we'd love your take on Hoffman and Sungjae.
Yeah, well, I mean, first on Sungjae, obviously, as you said, he's had a couple of top 10s here previously. Does tend to be pretty sticky in terms of course history. He's also won at TPC Summerlin. So another golfer on Team Audience, Tom Kim and Sungjae, both won at TPC Summerlin, the Shriners. So yeah, look, a couple of wide selections in terms of guys who have some desert form. Don't mind either of them at all. Charlie Hoffman, like, interesting one, right? As you said, he's coming in this time with actually like reasonable form, which for Charlie Hoffman like almost never happens with any tournament, because he can be really hit and miss, especially, I mean, let's face it, he's 48 years old, he's getting towards the end of his career. So the fact that he last year, I mean, if we look at what happened last year, there were 2 golfers that beat Scotty Scheffler here. One was Nick Taylor, who finished first, and the other was Charlie Hoffman, who finished second, and you've ended up with them both on your team, Joel. So if you're looking for a repeat of taking down Scotty Scheffler in my lineup here, then that may not be a bad route to go. So look, as you said, I do think there is perhaps an extra motivation. The fact that it is his title sponsor, they're the one who are kind of keeping him in the game. He's finished second and 14th here. The last couple of years, he finished second, like back in like 2008, I think it was. 2009, he finished second at this golf course as well, back when it was known as the FBR Open for sponsorship reasons. So, look, he's got a great history here, and he's in great form. My only concern, as you will know, is ownership. Like, do I want to play a 9%, 10% Charlie Hoffman? It can be really boom or bust. Again, it just matters how you deploy him, as per the conversation at the beginning of the stream. You can play chalk, it just matters how you deploy it, who else you pair those guys with.
All right, there you have it. David, you got 7,500 per pick here. You got 2. Where are you going next?
Yeah, again, a couple of different routes I could go here. What have you got left? You've got 8-3. Audience is 7-5. Yeah, okay, I'm going to go, and I don't think I'm ruining anything by saying this. I was really tempted to take Billy Horschel here, but he is 18% ownership, and I've already got a pretty chalky lineup. So just given that, I'm not going to take him because of the fact that it's just like accumulating an absolute chalk monster. So I'm going to actually just try and build it a little bit different now. And as I said at the beginning of the show, when we were in our course breakdown, this golf course has had multiple winners multiple times at this golf course. And there's a player in this field who finished 16th at the Sony Open. They finished 22nd last week at ATT Pebble Beach Pro-Am, and they won this event previously back in 2018. That's Gary Woodland. And you're getting him at very, very cheap price at 7,100. As I said, he looks to be in much better form than he has been. Obviously, he had that real battle against with the brain tumor that they had removed. He seems to have been coming back really strongly. And look, I mean, he is playing for his career now as a result of something that was outside of his control. And he's appearing at an event where he's won previously. He's found a lot of success here, and he looks to be in decent form. The approach play is really good, and the off the tee game is really good at the moment. So I think Gary Woodland's a really interesting option to look at further down the board. Yep, it's a bit of a risk, but you have to take those kind of shots when it comes to tournaments like this. And I really like him at that price at 7,100. I'm going to go and pair him up with another team no putt. If this is going to be the event where players who can't putt do well, then if we're looking for an elite ball striker, none other than the Gim Reaper, is the route that you should perhaps consider going. Look, he finished second at the end of last year at TPC Summerlin in incredibly windy conditions. And if you recall that tournament, he was on the complete wrong side of a huge weather wave. We were fortunate we had the winner in JT Poston, and we had the first round leader in Taylor Prendrith because we correctly predicted where that weather was going to fall ahead of time. Another great reason to be in the Win Daily Discord for all of our up-to-date weather updates using our premium forecasting models. We can deliver you a real edge in that regard. And Duggan managed to overcome that. It was like a 4-stroke deficit, and I believe he only lost by like 1 or 2 shots to one shot in the end to JT Poston, despite being in this like completely horrific weather edge that he managed to overcome. Other than that, last year he finished 12th at this event, so he's got great form at this event previously. And the fact that, as I said, elite ball striker, absolutely cannot putt to save himself, lost 5 strokes putting at the Pebble Beach last week. I totally get that, but that hasn't tended to be that much of a factor here. And if we're looking for a really elite ball striker who's got good desert form, this might be finally the time that Doug Gim can get over that winning hurdle and get that monkey off his back.
All right, there it is. Gary Woodland and Doug Gim off the board. Solid turn. I like the way you've balanced this roster out with Scotty Scheffler. All right, on my turn here, I had a strategy and I am pivoting off of it. And I'm just confirming right now that I can afford to do so, which I believe I can. So again, I'm going to make a move that I just changed my mind on. I was originally planning to take Kurt Kitayama here, but I changed my mind. I like Kurt Kitayama, and I think if you want to play him, I probably will have some exposure to him. But what I'm deciding to do here is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take Sepp Straka. And I'm going to go with the recent form that you get from Sepp Straka. You know, they've priced him up, but if you look at what he's been doing recently, I mean, his ball striking he's on a tear. He gained 4.5 strokes last week at Pebble Beach. He won the American Express with a hot putter. He's well balanced. His driver is dialed in. I just think for a guy who's just really dialed in, playing some really solid golf, I think in this tournament, you know, it's a good course fit. It should fit the way he plays. And if you want to look at especially those priority proximity numbers, those are his strength, right? That $150 to $200 range is his strength. So if he's dialed in and that's where he's hitting the ball, this should be a perfect fit for him. At 9,400, I think he's safe, right? I think he has upside too. We can get top 10, but the way he's hitting the ball, with these proximity numbers, I don't see him falling outside of the top 30 either. I think he at least gets you a decent result at the very worst. So I really like Sepp Straka this week. You know, he's another one that will probably end up coming in a little over-owned than what he should be just because of the recent results. But the number I'm looking now, I only see 10. I think he's going to come in higher than that. I think that seems low. But if it comes in anywhere near 10, that's actually under-owned for ownership. And maybe that's because it's probably hard to pair him with Scheffler. So if you're pairing Scheffler, you got to go elsewhere, which could be a different strategy to make your lineups unique this week. Audience, you got 2 here. So audience, we need those nominations in. It looks like 1 might be in already, but we'll need that second to lock in your final picks while we wait for those final picks to get locked in. David, how about you on Sepp Straka?
Yeah, look, I am seeing a little bit higher ownership. I'm getting him at 14% at the moment. I think that's probably more where that number lands, but I still think he's absolutely playable within that ownership range, again, depending on how you pair him and what you put him with. As you rightly pointed out, it's kind of the same answer that I gave with Tom Hoge. It's like, this is an incredibly elite ball striker. Like that is the foundation of Sepp Straka's game. And those are the type of players who have done really, really well at TPC Scottsdale. He is on an absolute tier, gaining more than 1 stroke per round at every single event since September on approach. So it is incredibly consistent what he's doing. And there's only one other golfer in this tournament who is better from 150 to 200 yards over the last 2 years. That is Scotty Scheffler. Then second person is Sepp Straka. So as you said, it's an excellent approach range for him. I think it's a really good spot, and he's in fabulous form. He's playing really, really well.
All right, lock it in, audience. Minwoo Lee is locked in, and then your final pick. I'm not sure that final pick has been locked in yet. So it looks like it's Jake Knapp. Jake Knapp finalizing the draft for the audience. I think you guys did a really good job balancing out your squad. I think you got 6 golfers who can compete. And it's different, right? You're not going to have Scotty Scheffler. It's a unique build. It's an interesting approach to attacking this tournament for DFS. David, I want to go back to you here. I would love your take on Minwoo Lee and Jake Knapp this week.
I am tentatively going to be out on Minwoo Lee, I think, this week. The only reason I hesitate is, as I said, it is going to be really firm from everything that I'm reading and researching on this course so far. And Minwoo Lee's really good in US Open conditions, and we've seen that previously. And if it is going to be extremely firm and extremely fast, that may mean that it becomes a better spot for him. But overall, I guess my reason for the hesitation is that Minwoo Lee's played here once. He finished 71st. There is a hole in his game. It's his approach play. Like, he's a really good long driver of the golf ball. He's really good at putting. He's really good around the green. But his approach play can be a bit hit and miss. And I don't know if TPC Scottsdale's the kind of place that you can get away with that. As I said, he may prove me wrong, especially if it ends up being US Open type conditions. So I just maybe temper my expectations on what I can expect to see from Minwoo. He has looked better in his most recent start than he did perhaps towards the end of last year. So, we'll give him some credit. I think he does win on the PGA Tour in the next couple of years. He's definitely got the talent to do so. Then in terms of Jake Knapp, in terms of correlated courses, 28th in one appearance here, finished 8th at TPC Craig Ranch. Plenty of distance off the tee. I don't think that's an issue at all. 33rd last week at Pebble Beach, and most of the damage was done with the putters. So I think there's things to like there within his profile. Again, just depends how you want to pair him. And overall, I think that I like the audience's build. I think they've got a number of really high upside players here who can finish towards the top of the leaderboard, which is really the key when you're looking for a large GPP takedown.
All right, there you have it, audience. Nice job there. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm kind of torn here between 3 options, and because I'm kind of last here, I'm willing to open it up and just kind of share who I'm thinking about. You guys can go through my thought process. I think I've zoned in on the pick. So the 3 guys I'm deciding between are Thomas Dietrich, Ben Griffin, and Lee Hodges. And between the 3, I was originally probably leaning toward Dietrich, but I've changed my mind. I'm going to take Lee Hodges here, and I'll explain my thought process. Ben Griffin, I would thought was one who's probably getting overlooked. He didn't play great last week or the week before, to be honest, but he's been so good before that I think people are probably turning to it. I don't think he's as far away from some excellent results as people think. And I will have some exposure to Ben Griffin this week. But he's definitely a little riskier just because of the last 2 weeks, and the ball striking was pretty bad last week at Pebble Beach. With Dietrich, he relies on his putter, which is a hard thing to model because he can get hot with that putter, and he's not a great ball striker, which you want to be at this course. But he played well here last year. Got to get top 30. He can get a hot putter if he improves his ball striking this week just a little bit. I think he can get you a top 20. He can really compete. So I think Dietrich's there. But the reality is, Lee Hodges has been solid. And solid for a long time. Again, going back to the calendar year, he's got 2 top 10s already at the Sony Open and the Farmers. He gained strokes everywhere on approach, around the green, and putting each of the last 3 weeks, except for off the tee, where he's had some woes. He's lost a bunch of strokes off the tee at Pebble Beach. I can give him the excuse. Pebble Beach is unique; those cliffs that can be intimidating. Other than that, he lost 4 strokes. Other than that, he's been pretty solid. So I think that gets corrected. Everything else stays the same with the ball striking. Lee Hodges, again, is an underpricing at 7,100. And if you look at it here, at 10% ownership at 7,100, I'm okay with that. If that got up to 15 or 20, that'd be high. But at 10%, I don't even think that's too high. I think that's perfectly fine for the way you've been playing. David, would love your take. Are you interested in Lee Hodges this week? And then you're up with your last pick.
I'm glad you went with Lee Hodges there, because I think he's a really interesting prospect. And of those 3 names that you mentioned, he probably would have been top of the list, probably would have gone Hodges, Griffin, Dietrich in terms of the order. And that's just more than anything, probably because Dietrich has burned me so many times in the past, especially in the final round. He loves to throw away a victory. So, that is the thing that gets him off the most, is that he just absolutely loves throwing away tournaments he should win. So yeah, look, I thought Lee Hodges was the strongest of those selections. From memory, you might be able to correct me, but from memory at Pebble Beach, I feel like Hodges did most of the damage happened for him like on 2 holes. Like I feel that he like lost a ball into the water, or lost the ball off the tee into, as you said, off one of those cliffs in Pebble Beach, and that was really kind of what like ruined the tournament for him. Other than that, like he was once again really solid, and I think this is a decent course fit. Some concern of the fact he's played here twice and missed the cut twice, but I mean, you can't have it perfect every way, and that's why you're getting a player at 7,100 who otherwise looks to be in really good form. He's got a good correlation on other desert courses as well.
I'll add, one, yes, you're right. And not only are you right, it was the 18th hole on the first round. He lost 4 strokes off the tee, and he went 4 over on a par 5. Yeah. And after that, it was like neutral. So it's like, I think that skews the number a little bit. He had one horrific hole that kind of made it look a little bit worse than it probably was.
Yeah, I seem to remember that as well. And I thought, like, when I was looking through the data, I was like, that was noteworthy. Of like, I'm always kind of looking for those wrinkles in the data. And you and I were talking before we went live today of how sometimes actually watching the golf tournament, you get all that extra information that you can't see on a stat sheet every time. Like, all you see is like the headline number of like, this player lost 3 strokes off the tee in the tournament, and people go like, oh, he's lost his swing, and like, you can't hit his driver anymore. So I'm not going to play him. And then you look into it and you realize it's something like that, where he hit 2, I'm guessing he hit 2 balls into the water at least, playing the 18th hole, and as a result of that ended up with a quadruple bogey. And other than that, was really solid. And look, it's a pretty difficult hole, the 18th, massive dog leg right to left, and the water just like looking at you when you come down that hole. Unfortunately, we're into the desert and there's very little water on the course, other than I believe 17. Look, I seem to remember that, and that's the sort of thing I always like to look for in data is like, how can I dive into those numbers and like interpret them and read them in the context of like what actually happened, and how would that be different to someone who's maybe looking at it on a more surface level, literally, as my name says, deep diving into the stats a little bit more.
There you have it. That is a great pun. And then you're up. You got your last pick, 8,300 to spend. How you closing out your roster?
Yeah, a couple different routes I thought about going here, but in terms of, well, I guess I can talk freely now because everyone's made their selections. So in terms of guys, I mean, look, Luke Clanton has been insanely good, and a top 5 finish, and he's on his way to earning a PGA Tour card. Still an amateur. I still personally really struggle to play a guy who is 8,300, who's not even a professional, but the results continue to occur for Luke Clanton across basically any tournament he plays. The guy looks like a real talent. So definitely he piqued my interest. Instead, I am going to go down a little bit and go thank JT Poston for giving us a winner at TPC Summerlin, which was obviously a correlated course in terms of what we think this course in particular will play like. Another desert golf course, can be a bit windy, does tend to sit very similar in terms of the approach ranges that you're looking at here at TPC Scottsdale. He can also be a really good putter of the golf ball as well. I just think that JT Poston has the upside to go and get me a top 10 at 8,000. And again, don't mind leaving sort of $300 on the table here, rather than going to Luke Clanton, who I will admit was pretty tempting. The other name I did consider is Davis Thompson, because I have a lot of time for him. I think that he is a very, very good ball striker, and his power off the tee is really appealing. In saying that, what put me off him was the fact he's now lost on approach in his last 5 tournaments. That includes all the way back to November, and includes 4 since January this year that he's lost on approach. So his approach game just doesn't quite seem to be there right as this moment. He finished 15th here last year. He was 5th at TPC Summerlin, so that was part of the reason like I was making a case for him. But the fact that his recent approach just really isn't suggesting to me he's in the right space, I'm going to go JT Poston here instead.
All right, JT Poston, lock it in. Great draft. I think all 3 teams are very interesting. Anyone can win this week. Don't forget, smash the like button. Give us a follow. It goes a long way. As we pull the draft board down, look at the teams. Let us know what team you think is going to win. We will post the lineups. You vote for your favorite. And of course, we will crown a champion next week and do it all over again. Before we get you out of here tonight, though, we do have our first round leader plays. Don't forget, as David mentioned earlier, make sure you sign up for Win Daily. When you sign up for Win Daily, you get access to our Discord. You get access to Steven's ownership article, and that is critical. If you're playing these DFS tournaments, you have to understand what ownership look like, where you can get different, and find leverage in the field. We also will post our expert picks. You get access to our outright plays, and then David gives you weather updates as the tournament gets closer. So if there's any weather edge, if things change as we get closer to tee off, you will know that, and you can make some educated decisions about the golfers that you're betting on in your lineups to give yourself the biggest edge throughout the weekend. Before we get you out of here tonight, though, we do have some first-round leader plays, and David, we'll start with you. Who are you looking at in the first-round leader market?
Yeah, been a little while since we had a first-round leader because we've been in the heart of course rotation season, right? So in a lot of those cases, either they don't have a market for a first-round leader at all, or if they do, it's spread across 2 courses. And anytime something different like that happens, you find that the bookmakers love to increase their market hold because it's just an excuse because they can kind of get away with it. And so suddenly they start like pricing players up just because half of them aren't playing on a certain course, and they take a little bit of an extra edge as they do as well. So it's nice now to have it all on one course. Nice to have a cut as well this week. So I think that's for me where I thrive in terms of my DFS is in these full field no cut tournaments, as opposed to the smaller field cut events where it does get a little bit more constrained. You kind of just have to hit the nuts in order to take out titles just because somebody else will if you don't, given the smaller fields. So excited to have it back this week. I'm going full morning for my first round leader selections. It does look like that is the way that the weather is going to go, that the wind will pick up as the afternoon gets on, and particularly the fact that it is going to be really firm. If there is going to be any moisture in the ground whatsoever, it probably is going to be there in the early morning. So for me, that was where I really wanted to go in terms of selecting my first round leader picks this week. So I've got 4 to give out, and I was really pleased with all of these odds. And I think part of it is because like they almost price up the first round leader market similar to the outright with Scheffler obviously at the very top, but you can get some really good value on some of these guys going off in the morning. So one I really liked was Sam Stevens. He goes out in the very first tee time. He gets those best conditions. He's been playing great golf. You can get him at 80 to 1. He's in the literally first tee time of the day. Gary Woodland is also available at 80 to 1 going off in the morning. A guy who got drafted on the show with immense upside and the ability to go and shoot -8 at any time. Seb Striker is 50 to 1 to be first round leader and gets to go off in the morning and is playing beautiful golf at the moment. And then towards the top of the board, somewhat still decent odds at 40 to 1 is Sam Burns. Obviously, Scotty Scheffler's very good friend and a guy who can absolutely fill up the cut when he's putting well. He gets a morning tee time as well. And at 40 to 1, I think that he is excellent value to be your first round leader.
Boom. I love your card. I definitely have some overlap with your picks as well. A few unique plays I have for myself. Well, first one I want to start with the guy who I already told you I love this week. You're going to end him at 75 to 1, which is a big number. And he's also one of those first tee times, so out early in the morning. That's Charlie Hoffman. I think he can come out hot, give you a good start to the week. Listen, I don't have a lot of confidence in Charlie Hoffman winning this tournament. I just don't see that. But I do think he gets you a hot round. I think he has that one round and gets smoking hot and has a really good result. And that could be round 1. So 75 to 1, that's a really big number for him there. I also really like Hideki Matsuyama at 30 to 1. We've seen Hideki come out with hot starts in the first round at some of these tournaments. I think he can do that here. And he's another one that's getting out early in the morning. So similar on those trends. But I'm not sticking to only early, even though I do like Novak as well. But I like Novak in every way you can play Novak. A Novak fan. So I will have some exposure to Novak at 65 to 1. But the last 2 I want to mention for my card are Nick Dunlap. I like the way he's playing. I think Dunlap can surprise some people. The first round leader plays is the way to play him at 80 to 1. And the last one is your boy Dave Tom Hoagie. He's a first round leader guy. He tends to be like one of those guys that shows up in the first round, has a good result. You're getting a pretty good number with him here at 70 to 1. I think he's a good target for a long shot number there at 70 to 1, who could realistically end up in that first round leader position. That's a wrap for us tonight. Again, I am super excited. It's going to be a fun weekend, a fun golf tournament. If you're watching it on TV, it's the only tournament you watch where it feels like you're watching a different sporting event, right? You get a rowdy crowd. You can see the people having fun. This is the tournament that you've seen golfers. I think, what was it? Was it Joel Dahman ripped off his shirt on the green a few years ago? So it gets a little ruckus out there. It's a little rowdy, but it's a ton of fun. Get some action. We'll hit some bets. Let us know how you do. Show us those green screens. And, of course, we'll come back next week. We'll crown a champion, and we'll do it all over again. Good luck this week. And, David, did I forget anything?
Well, I mean, other than the obvious, just want to give a big shout out to everyone, especially Sia, who loves all three lineups. Thanks for jumping in the chat, Sia, Prasant, Jordan, Ed, all the regulars who are here, and everyone who's new as well watching. Really appreciate you coming along, supporting. Please like, please subscribe. We only get to do this content right if you guys support us and give us some love back. So really, really appreciate you guys doing that, because we love being able to talk golf for you and share our insights for all of you and produce great content. So make sure you jump in the description, grab that promo link while it's still there, 50% off. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, but most importantly, sports.